In Climate Watch, the drought that has hit the western United States for years is getting worse. Last week, the federal government declared what's called an exceptional drought for much of the region. That's the most severe classification. In Utah, the conditions are helping fuel several wildfires early in the season. The governor there says that the state is experiencing its worst drought in decades. At the Hoover Dam, the water level tells the story. It's down to its lowest level since the dam was built. The iconic structure provides power for nearly 8 million people in Arizona, Southern California, and Nevada. CBS News' Ben Tracy has more on the government's plans to address the problem.
I mean, it's amazing to see it up close.
For more than 8 decades, the Hoover Dam has relied on water from Nevada's Lake Mead to cover up its backside. But now at age 85, it finds itself uncomfortably exposed.
This is like a different world.
Pat Mulroy is the former head of the Southern Nevada Water Authority. She says Lake Mead, the nation's largest reservoir, is on track to soon hit its lowest level ever recorded. This part of the Colorado River system is a crucial water supply for Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Southern California. It makes the vast agricultural land of the desert Southwest possible.
This landscape screams problems to me. I mean, just look at the bathtub rings. To me, that is an enormous wake-up call.
Lake Mead is at just 37% of its capacity. It hasn't been full since back in 2000 when the water came right up to the top of Hoover Dam. This is what it looks like now. Since 2000, Lake Mead has dropped 130 feet. That's hard to imagine, but picture a 13-story building on top of my head, and way up there, that's where the water used to be.
We're at a tipping point. It's an existential issue for Arizona, for California, for Nevada. It is just that simple.
For the first time ever, the federal government is expected to declare a water shortage on the lower Colorado River later this summer. That will force automatic cuts to the water supply for Nevada and Arizona starting in 2022.
If we don't have irrigation water, we can't farm.
Dan Thielander is a second-generation family farmer in Arizona's Pinal County. The water to grow his corn and alfalfa fields comes from Lake Mead.
So next year, we're going to get about 25% less water. Means we're going to have to fallow or not plant 25% of our land.
This is an engineering marvel for sure.
Back at Hoover Dam, facility manager Mark Cook has his own concerns. Lake Mead has dropped so much that it's cut the dam's hydropower output by nearly 25%. He wanted to show us the new turbine blades they just installed.
So right below us right here is that brand new turbine.
Designed to keep the power flowing efficiently at rapidly dropping lake levels.
Our previous number was at elevation 1050, and now we've lowered that number to 950, so we bought ourselves 100 feet. All those islands were underwater?
Completely submerged.
Pat Mulroy says a rapidly retreating reservoir may be the new normal, and the millions of people who rely on this water supply will have to quickly learn to live with less of it.
We don't change unless we absolutely have to. Well, when you look out at this lake, I think that moment of it's absolutely necessary has arrived.
Ben Tracy, CBS News, Lake Mead, Nevada.
For more, I want to bring in Henry Fountain. He's a climate reporter at the New York Times. Henry, give us some historical context here. We saw Ben explain that a 13-story building should be on top of his head full of water. But how severe is this drought, not just there, but throughout the western United States?
It's really severe. California to where I am in New Mexico, up north, even as far as North Dakota, it's really, really bad drought. The problem is it's been dry pretty much for like the last year and a half, and actually it's been dry in much of the region for the last 20 years, with sort of some intermittent years that were kind of wet, but we're really in a prolonged drought. And the thing about drought is the longer it goes, the worse it gets. Things dry out, and it takes a lot of storms and stuff for them to recover.
The drought has changed the landscape dramatically. I want to show our viewers a photo of Lake Orville in 2017. And you see it there on the left, and then now here in 2020. Lake Orville, obviously important for feeding farms, not just houses. How are these droughts affecting agriculture?
Well, as you see with Lake Oroville, I think it's one of California's reservoirs, and California's reservoirs on the whole are less than 50% of normal capacity right now. And as you said, a lot of that goes to farmers. So farmers are facing cutbacks. In your piece just now, farmers in Arizona will be facing severe cutbacks next year because of the situation on the Colorado River. In New Mexico, where I am, farmers are basically told, don't plant this year unless you absolutely have to. There's basically not enough water to go around. It's that dire.
And that has implications, as you heard, on power as well, because a lot of the West relies on hydropower for electricity. Do you think that that is likely to change, or might we have a power shortage in the West?
Well, as you saw with the Hoover Dam, there's innovations that can be undertaken to try to get more power out of less water, or the same amount of power out of less water. In terms of a power shortage, I mean, there's plenty of alternative energy coming online, solar power, wind power. There's still a lot of, traditional, conventional gas and coal generation even. So I don't know if you could say there'd be power shortages, but certainly the problem with hydropower is very severe. And really the only solution, the only long-term solution is get out of this drought.
Well, if we can't increase the amount of water, what needs to be done to try and decrease usage? And is that really feasible?
Well, I think it is. I think, there was a bad drought in California from 2015 to 2017, and there were all sorts of mandatory cutbacks of the public's use of water. And by and large, those cutbacks were met. And, there weren't that many stories about the hardship of it. So we can do things like, stop having lawns, for instance, which consume a lot of water. I think agriculture is a more difficult problem. Agriculture uses much more water than you and I use. But and the problem is when you have a drought like this and the reservoirs are low, the tendency is to pump water from the ground. And in California in particular, they've been pumping water out of the ground for a long time, and water levels underground have fallen very far. So the solution is more efficient irrigation techniques, perhaps shifting crops. California grows a lot of almonds. Almonds are really, really water intensive. There are things that can be done. I mean, until we get some more wet years, we're going to be facing tough times out here in the West.
No. I wonder if you see any end or relief in sight when it comes to this drought, because obviously, as we're talking about what factors we can control, for most of us, it's our usage. But ultimately, as you say, the way that this changes at the front end of it, at least, is if this drought ends. Is there any potential relief in sight?
Well, there's always, as scientists I've talked to say, we could get lucky and we could get, 3 or 4 wet years in a row, and that would really help. That would return Lake Oroville to the 2017 levels very easily, and that would help Hoover Dam and Lake Mead look less like it does today and fuller. The problem, and this is where climate change enters the picture, right? With a warming climate and with the shifting types of precipitation that happen with a warming climate, the probability of getting a couple of wet years in a row tends to fall down, tends to decline. And so it's more difficult. It's less likely that you're going to really pull yourself out of a drought to any great degree. You might have one good year that will help for a year or so, but the odds of getting 2 good years in a row or 3 good years in a row is less than it used to be. And that's because the climate, the atmosphere is warmer than it used to be.
All right. Henry Fountain, thank you.
Thanks.